This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeff Malinoff, and since Mark Souza is no longer with us, it's just going to be me for the time being. Hope that's okay with you all. Well, we got still a lot to talk about in the world of sports. We got the NBA returning from its All-Star weekend break. As LeBron has entered quote-unquote playoff mode, he kind of proved that with his comeback against the Rockets. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Warriors and their win against Sacramento Kings and if they can be even stopped. We'll also talk about the great Bucks and Celtics game where the Bucks held on to win and they remain the top team in the Eastern Conference in the NBA. Also, we'll have some NFL news regarding the draft and even some, there's one league that's not getting enough love, and there's an owner of a team in that league that wants to show that they are still around. So we'll talk about that as well. But first things first, Houston Rockets versus the Los Angeles Lakers. Lakers were down in that game, and with LeBron basically leading the charge, if you will, they won this game. They were down throughout most of the game, actually. They were down after the only lead they had going into the fourth quarter was a 17-16 lead in the first quarter. So this was like all Rockets throughout most of the game. And it really turned the tide basically in the fourth quarter. LeBron really took over, 29 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. He had that humongous tomahawk LeBron-esque slam, I guess Statue of Liberty slam that people are calling in that game, which really wasn't like a big time they got the massive lead or something through this. It was just a statement kind of dunk, and where it was like, the momentum's going towards the Lakers, which makes sense. And Harden's streak of 30 points continues, but barely. He got exactly 30 points this game. He was struggling throughout this whole, his second half was just not his day. Especially, he was just missing some shots. He even airballed some shots. People were, he was getting, something was getting in his head definitely this game, especially at the end of it in the second half. And, after the game, he kind of got interviewed about the referee, Scott Foster. And he did not really have nice things to say because he said he should never referee one of our games again. He's apparently he's out to get us or something of that nature. Those aren't his words, but that's what I assumed what he meant from that. And Chris Paul even said something about it as well. They were both fouled out of the game going into at the end of the fourth quarter. They both fouled out. 4 offensive fouls for James Harden, and a lot of it is just him being he doesn't express a lot of frustration with the refs, mainly because he averages roughly around 11 free throws a game, 11.4 to be exact, which is actually kind of not really doing how many times he goes to the line justice, because I've seen him shoot up to 18 to 19, even 20 free throws. And so if anyone gets the fouls a lot, it's James Harden. But I understand his frustrations due to the fact that he was getting offensive foul after offensive foul and the charging call and all these other things. But regardless, I think that this a goal against Scott Foster, I guess there's some history there. It's kind of every time there's kind of controversy when it comes to referees, Scott Foster is somehow involved, especially when it's against the Rockets, supposedly. And I can understand the frustration if you're a Rockets team that had the lead like this, and then everything just went really downhill from there. There were some bad calls. Yes, I agree with that. But overall, I think it was fine. I didn't really see too much that was like, oh, that's just a blatant obvious no call or a blatant obvious call they missed or something of that nature. That's what I saw, at least. I could be totally wrong, but that's what I saw. And then, as soon as Harden fouled out, and then Chris Paul fouled out as well, this game was basically all Lakers because when you lose two of your elite players, especially Harden, who is basically carrying your team in points and all this other things, you're not going to win many games when you don't have your best players. And honestly, I feel like the Houston Rockets are a lot of I know they have some good supporting cast players, but this seems to still be James Harden's show. I mean, but Chris Paul did his part. He had 23 points himself, but you're looking at the rest, PJ Tucker, a starter, played 34 minutes, only had 3 points and 3 rebounds, and he's the small forward. But Capella did return to this game, who is a very underrated supporting cast, a great supporting cast center for the Rockets. He did all right. He had a double-double himself, 12 points, 11 rebounds, but nothing too special. He still contributed, sure, but there's still a lot to be, maybe more trustworthy in your teammates, or just, I'm not sure really how to go on from that, but that's just, if you compare the Lakers supporting cast of LeBron to Harden's supporting cast for the Rockets, it's a big difference. LeBron James had Brandon Ingram with 27 points himself and 13 rebounds. Kuzma has 18 points this game, but he's known to have these 30-point games and 20-point games and 30-point games, and he is very consistent with the ball on the offensive side. And, of course, Rajon Rondo off the bench usually is an assist machine. And it's just LeBron has a lot of young talent that's a supporting cast, great for him. And I think the reason they're in this position now is obviously because LeBron was gone for a big period of time between the Christmas game where he got injured and his return. I think it was in February, earlier this month, before the All-Star break. Maybe it was even late January, but it was a long period of time where he was gone, and that really put a damper on the record of the Los Angeles Lakers. So that's kind of how that all turned out. But overall, LeBron says he's in playoff mode activated, and people really had a field day with that on social media and Twitter and all that stuff. And I get that. I'm not sure what he meant by playoff mode. I don't know if he's actually completely dark on social media or not. I haven't really checked his social media, but if he says playoff mode activated, I'm sure he means that he's dark on Twitter and all that stuff, because that's what he does during the playoff time. He turns off all social media, which is honestly one of those things in where it's just you got to just be focused. Nothing else matters except for the games type of mentality, and I get that. And with LeBron, actually, speaking of LeBron, Space Jam 2 has a release date. It's coming out in 2021. We are actually so Space Jam 2 is quote-unquote official. I'm not going to say it's I know they have a date, but I don't know when the shooting is or anything of that nature, or anything about how this all, but it says it'll hit theaters July 16, 2021. Of course, the last Space Jam was Michael Jordan's Space Jam, which was one of my favorite movies as a kid growing up. And, of course, the sequel has been rumored for a long time, who would be in it. Kobe Bryant was also, a rumor, years and years ago after the Michael Jordan Space Jam. And now LeBron's going to be in it, which is a perfect replacement, I feel for Michael Jordan. Well, maybe not replacement's a strong word, but, more along the lines of the perfect next generation for the Space Jam movies for sure is LeBron James, because he is polarizing and is popular, maybe even more as Michael Jordan. So obviously a situation there where I can't wait to see the movie. I don't think it's gonna be as good as the original one, because it's so hard to do. I mean, what other sequel movies have been better than the original, Terminator 2 and other movies like that? But I know it's another basically 2 years from now. 2 years from now. A little over 2 years. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually excited it actually has a release date. And honestly, I think this has a lot to do with him being in the LA Lakers. Maybe this was his push, why he became an LA Laker to be in Space Jam 2. I don't think so. That's not actually the case. But obviously there's some marketing involved when it comes down to Lakers because, let's face it, the LA Lakers are one of the most profitable teams in the NBA, and the most if you think of the high markets, you automatically think of the LA Lakers and like the Boston Celtics and so on and so forth. So honestly, it totally made sense when he went to I think everyone thought, oh, that makes sense. He's going to a better market for himself, which makes sense. Because like Michael Jordan was in Chicago, and that's a huge market, a very underrated market, but it's still a huge market, all things considered. And that's why, like, when he was a free agent during the time of him going to the Heat and the decision, he was talked about going to New York and playing for the Knicks. And, of course, New York is New York, the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden, and the city's so nice to name it twice, maybe the greatest city in the world, all that jazz. But regardless, he went to a high market. He's going to be in Space Jam 2, rightfully so. I mean, do we want to see, like, Marcus Smart in Space Jam 2? I mean, there'd be a lot of flops. I mean, I guess Harden would... No, I can't see Harden. I don't think Harden's that good of an actor. Well, I don't even know. LeBron's been in some movies, so I've seen him act. He's all right. But I guess we'll see how that turns out. To be honest, Michael Jordan did a pretty good job acting, all things considered, for not being an actor, for being just an athlete playing a part. He did a pretty good job, all things considered, in that first Space Jam movie. So we'll see how maybe Bill Murray will make another appearance and be subbed into the game randomly, and somehow he got into Looney Tune Land. I never really thought about it until just now. How did Bill Murray get into Looney Tune Land in the first one? Because it was in the golf hole. If you watch the movie, if you haven't watched the movie, I highly recommend it. It's probably going to be on Netflix now because of all these rumors. It should be. But why? How did he get in there? Did he just say he just jumped in? I don't really. I can't recall off the top of my head how he got to Looney Tune Land. Like I know how the other guy got in. I'm blanking on his name right now, but you know what I mean. His big manager guy. He's been in so many other movies. Like he's super popular. He was in Jurassic Park too, so I don't really remember the situations of that matter. But regardless, I think that when it comes down to it, Space Jam was a great movie. I'm looking forward to Space Jam 2. Maybe there'll be some recurring characters. I mean, Larry Bird was also in it too, especially at the end where he's talking to Bill Murray on the stands. When Michael Jordan returns to basketball, he goes, "Let's go Bulls!" I always thought that was very funny. So I thought that was a great movie myself. But regardless, LeBron is. So I guess in the movie, LeBron's could be a Laker or maybe a Cav. Who knows? Could be anything really. But regardless, I think the lines of the Lakers and their chances at the playoffs, going back to that game against the Rockets, is definitely it's definitely helping to the fact the Kings, who are ahead of them in the standings, lost to the Warriors barely, though, which was a great game itself. That was a 125-123 game. The Kings almost had it. Buddy Hield tried to shoot at the buzzer and airballed it and lost the game. But granted, the Lakers are now a game behind them. They have 29 wins. The Lakers do to the Kings 30. And then, of course, 8th seeded Clippers have 32 wins. And 7th seed Spurs have 33. And Utah has 32 but 25 losses. So that's why they're ahead of both of them. And it goes really down to, like, the Houston Rockets have 33 wins as well. So everyone's not – of course, it's Western Conference, so everyone's not too far apart. Obviously, it kind of spreads out at the end, at the top of the list. Where, like, even Portland has 35 wins, so they're pretty comfortable in that 4th seed at the moment. So is Oklahoma City Thunder at 37 wins, and Denver at their 39, and then, of course, Golden State Warriors 42 wins. No shocker there. But the shocker is they don't have the most wins in the league. Actually, the Bucks do at 44, and then of course the Raptors at 43. So a lot of good things happening in the world of the basketball world, definitely for LeBron, because I think if they're gonna make the playoffs, they need a push now. They need kind of a winning streak to go on, and of course not today but tomorrow they're playing the Pelicans with Anthony Davis. Will be a nice little reunion for Anthony Davis and LeBron James, because of the fact that they were kind of a lot of recruiting going on in that standpoint, and of course, all of the huge trade that was offered to the Pelicans for Anthony Davis, like I think it was Kuzma, Ball, Ingram. I think Hart was in that trade too. Multiple first-round draft picks, and honestly, I thought that would be like the kind of the beginning of the end, if you will, for the Lakers, because of the fact that everyone would be like, well, you're kind of like, you already said we're expendable. Like, in their defense, like that's what they kind of felt like. They were expendable in a way. And so I thought that would not be good for the rest of the season, all things considered. But regardless, they seem to be on the same page now. I think LeBron kind of patched things up, if you will, with them. So overall, I think that the Lakers are going to be fine. I can easily see them making the playoffs. So we'll see how that all turns out. And as for the Warriors, I think they're obviously going to be fine. They're going to take first place. So if we are lucky, and if this all goes down to it, we may see a LeBron Lakers versus a Curry Durant Warriors. Technically a rematch, not exactly a rematch, all things considered, because it's not the finals. But seeing it in the first round rather than the finals, I think that'll be one of the most watched first-round matchups in quite some time. So that is also an interesting standpoint to that. But regardless, we are going to take a short break here. But when we come back, we'll be talking about the NFL a little bit and the NFL Draft Combine, because we have some new news about that, as well as one of the main quarterbacks in the draft. And we'll be right on that when we return.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news, both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Back, everyone, to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We're going to move into football now. But first, before I go into the draft and all that good stuff, I want to talk about something that actually kind of sparked the news a little bit. But as the AAF is taking some momentum for the football world, as well as the new XFL coming out next season, there's a certain owner of a certain football team that wants you to remember there's still another league out there. That's Dan Nolan, the owner of the Albany Empire. For those of you who don't know who that is, the owner or the team, can't say I blame you, except if you're in Albany, because you probably get a lot of, maybe not even a lot of publicity based off the league itself, but the Arena Football League is still around. Yes, if you remember correctly, the Arena Football League was popular, had a momentum of popularity at one time or another in the early 2000s, I believe. I believe they had up to they had a lot of teams at one point going into the 2000s. I think there was at most roughly around 26 teams, which is actually quite a lot, all things considered, for a secondary league, if you will, especially in the Arena Football League. If you've never seen the Arena Football League, it's actually quite interesting just due to the fact that it's 50 yards. The whole field, that is. And just based off that, it's a lot more high scoring than usual. And with that, it's more along the lines of just like a lot of fast paced, high scoring offense type stuff, because it's only 50 yards. So the rules are kind of different too. The rules are very different, actually, based off of just like certain positions. There's different names for positions. I can't really think off of them at the top of my head. But regardless, it's very different than what we're used to seeing. So if you want to see something really different but still football, check that out. And it had momentum at one time or another. Like I said, in the 2000s and somewhat. But maybe not 20 teams. I think it was like 19, 20 teams at one point they had. Maybe not 25, 26. But if you want to guess how many teams they have now in the year 2018 for that particular season, because their season's over for now. The 2018 season's done. And they're going to be coming back next season for 2019 in April. So it's coming up quickly. But I will gladly tell you how many teams were actually in the league in 2018. 4. Yes. They went from roughly 19, 20 teams to 4 in a matter of 10 years. And for those who don't really understand football or just how leagues and stuff should work, that's not how a league should go. They should not just have 4 teams. And by the way, the winner of the Arena Bowl, it was Arena Bowl 31 this year, between the Baltimore Brigade and the Washington Valor, with the Valor won 69-55 on, July 28th, 2018. The Washington Valor's record in the regular season was 2-10. They were the worst team in the league, but there's just only 4 teams. They had to have them in the playoffs. And the 2-10 team won their Super Bowl, their Arena Bowl, won their championship. I think in any sport of any time, I've never, ever heard of a team with double-digit losses and less than 3 wins. A percentage of under 2. Their percentage of winning was 167, which is absolutely putrid. And going into the playoffs, they faced the number 1 team, Albany, which is the guy that says, we're going to get some more teams coming into this soon. They went 8-4. Here's all the scores of the 2 playoff games before the Arena Bowl, quote unquote, or not quote unquote, it's just the Arena Bowl. Washington upsets Albany 103-97 in a football game. Can you imagine if you saw that in the NFL? Like, that's a whole new level of that's basically playing Madden and putting everything on rookie and moving the sliders to 0 for the computer team, or moving everything to 100 for both teams, you know? And so everyone is 99 or 100 overall at everything. So easy scoring and defense just got no love, basically. So that's how that worked, basically. I just can't imagine a game going, I got to watch that game because I want to see how 103 looks like in real time. And then the Baltimore team that beat Philadelphia, the only team that I only remember is the Philadelphia Soul. First of all, it's an awesome name. I love that name, Philadelphia Soul. I think it's unique. They've been around for quite a while. Since 2004, actually. They're the oldest team in the league at the moment, because everyone else is like 2 or 3 years into their existence. Baltimore was established in 2017. Albany was established in 2017. And I believe Washington was... Or actually, I'm sorry. Albany was established this season. This was their first inaugural season. So obviously the only team that's been around for a long period of time was Philadelphia, and still is. One of the first teams ever in the league was the Tampa Bay Storm, and that was like 1980 something, in 1986, and like maybe 1980, 92. I'm unsure of how it all started. They were established in 1987. They were the oldest franchise in the Arena Football League. And their 30th year, their 30th season, and Arena Bowl 30, Tampa Bay was in that game. Last year's Arena Bowl, it was Philadelphia, another basically a proven team in the Arena Football League. See, Philadelphia, you had a championship team already before the Eagles. Just saying. And when they played the Tampa Bay Storm, that was Tampa Bay Storm's last game. They ceased operations after that game. And at one point, the San Jose SaberCats won the Arena Bowl and ceased operations the very next season. They didn't play another game after that, which I think is incredible. And just overall, how amazing everything has, like, this Arena Football League has really gone down in the dumps, if you will. But overall, a 2-10 team winning your championship, that's not good. That's just how I see it, at least. Maybe you think of something different, but tell me I'm wrong when it comes down to your world championship team should not, repeat, not be a 2-10 franchise. Just saying. But the owner of the Albany Empire, like I said, give the Arena Football League a chance. We're coming back. We're going to get some more teams later on. We're going to expand to 6, which they are expanding to 6 teams going into next season. And they're not in the biggest of markets. One of the teams is in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And the game's going to be held at Boardwalk Hall, which is been around since 1929 and hasn't really had a game like a team there or tenants there. Like they had a bowl game, the Liberty Bowl there, but that was in 1964. So that's absurd. And then of course they have to go to Ohio, right? I mean that's a big time market for football. They have the Cleveland Gladiators, but they're on hiatus due to the Quicken Loans Arena being remodeled during their season, because during their season there's not a lot of basketball happening. So they're not going to be able to play for another year. They play at the Quicken Loans Arena. So the new expansion AFL team is in Columbus, Ohio. So they're moving a little bit. They're going to play at the Nationwide Arena, which is somewhat newer. But, yeah, that's just how the league is just going. You know what I mean? That's just how it looks. So maybe give them a chance. Give them an opportunity to check them out. But I understand the AAF seems more entertaining, and it is to me. But if you want to see just high-scoring 50-yard pass plays, like from the goal line to the end zone right away, give it a shot. Why not, right? But anyways, speaking more into the NFL, Dwayne Haskins has said it's been announced that Dwayne Haskins will be throwing the football during the combine. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that all plays out, because obviously the two quarterbacks that are talked about the most in this draft class are Dwayne Haskins and Kyler Murray. But I've seen a lot of mock drafts moving Kyler Murray out of the top 5 and into like into teens. Like I see him going number 13 to Miami and kind of couple, and Drew Lock goes to Jacksonville, which I'm not saying is a bad choice, just because Drew Lock, of course, maybe the height's the reason, of course, because everyone's talking about height, which I get, but Kyler Murray's got talent. So if you give him an opportunity, Jacksonville, it wouldn't be like the worst thing in the world, obviously. But I understand if you're hesitant with it, because what Tom Coughlin said recently was Blake Bortles is still their quarterback. And when I hear that, I hear, really? Really, you're going to trust Blake Bortles? I mean, yes, he went to the AFC Championship game 2 years ago, but that was his defense, obviously. Everyone says his defense carried him, and it's true. His defense did a lot, but he did his part, quite honestly, when it came down to it. And he did his own share of the load when it came down to that playoff run. So that's just how I see it, at least, is like maybe cut up some slack, but he did have a very poor performance this season, no question about it, because this team was supposed to go over the hump, supposedly, and they just it just didn't go. It just wasn't right. It just didn't go well for them at all. Everything just went wrong. Their defense kind of struggled, especially their offense, like with the Leonard Fournette issues, and then getting Carlos Hyde from the Browns, and then he doing nothing. There was just a lot went wrong for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's still a lot to be desired when it comes to that team. So if I was them, Blake Bortles is not my guy. I think everyone would agree with that. But as of right now, they say that's their guy. So, I mean, what are you going to do, right? But how I see this happening is, does Jacksonville have a chance to make the playoffs? Absolutely. I still think their defense is great, but it's all going to come down to who's your quarterback. Because if you're not going to have Leonard Fournette, because you kind of just kicked him out the door, you're not going to, and if you have Blake Bortles, you're not really going to give a lot of options. Otherwise, their offense is just looking like, when you look at their offense, they look like a 3-13 team. When you look at their defense, they look like an 11-5 team. It's really crazy how completely different those two sides are. And I guess going over into this next season, we are going to find out if this is truly a defense wins championship still league, or is offense the most crucial thing now. Because there's obviously the league has changed, but the classic saying of defense wins championships will not be tested more than it will be next season with Jacksonville Jaguars, because their offense looks like a putrid, like their old school teams where they were the number 1, number 2, number 3 picks in the draft. They were never number 1 pick, but they were just still in the high top 5 for years. And they had a 2-14 season not too long ago, all things considered. So we got to find out if their defense can carry their team to a playoff run, because I think that's the most crucial thing. And they need an offensive star in this draft. They don't need more. They don't need to draft a defensive guy. They could and update them, boost their defense tremendously, no question about it. But they need help on that offensive side. They need to make noise in this free agency. They need to. They have to. So we are going to take a break, but when we come back, we will be continue talking about the football and basketball and all the other news that needs to be talked about, and maybe even give tips see what the offseason needs are for every team in the NFL. So we'll be right on that when we return.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We're going to finish up the day. We are going to do a to-do list for each team in the NFL this offseason, because that needs to happen. These teams need to do certain things. And I think first thing, we'll just do this alphabetical order. We'll do Arizona Cardinals first. And boy, do they need a lot to do this offseason. I think first things first is find out who they're going to get in the draft. But is it really Nick Bosa who is their savior for the number 1 overall pick? Should they trade down and get a future selection when it's more of a weapon they could use? Or is this the best option available overall? Like, when I mean weapon to use, I meant offensively. But I understand that's a tall glass to order, all things considered, coming off right out of the bat, first-round pick. But everyone's loving Nick Bosa. Again, he hasn't played in a while. He's coming off an injury. I know it's been months, but I mean, if you take a look at his brother Joey, they have a history of continuous injuries. And honestly, that would be a concern to me. But I understand, I know talent. I obviously can see he has talent, is what I meant to say. And he has all the talent in the world. Don't get me wrong on that. But it just, the injuries and him not playing for a long period of time is concerning to me. It's honestly concerning. So, but I think the Cardinals need to figure out if they're actually going to go with him or not. Because I don't think they even know yet. They might already, but usually we kind of know by now if he's going to be taking number one. Like all the mock drafts say he's going to be taking number one, but really the Cardinals haven't really said nothing about it. But I guess we'll see when it comes down to it in April. But I think the biggest concern they need to work on in free agency is two things. The offensive line, for obvious reasons, and getting weapons for Josh Rosen. Because if Kingsbury said is true in that Josh Rosen's their guy for the future, he needs players around him to make plays. Larry Fitzgerald is past his prime, but still playing at a high level, no question about it. But you need more than Larry Fitzgerald to win games. David Johnson has been a massive question mark for a couple years now because of injuries and just his play. And with the other wide receiver core, it's a bunch of almost unknown names that really aren't considered weapons. So that's my concern, honestly, with the Arizona Cardinals is they need to find weapons for Josh Rosen, and they need to find a strong offensive line, and possibly draft Nick Bosa as the number one overall pick. Or, there might not be anybody else. Quinn Williams, maybe. Josh Allen, of course. It all depends on what they were looking for their defense or offense. Because it might be a quarterback, who knows, because everyone's saying Kyler Murray is going to go number one and they're going to cut Rosen, but Kingsbury kind of denied those rumors outright. So, still have no idea what's going to happen. So, but I think that was one of the key things for the Cardinals is just offensive line and weapons and offensive weapons for Josh Rosen. Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. First things first for them is they got to get better on their rush defense. Or pass rushers, excuse me. Because they were not good rushing the quarterback at all. They were by far struggling. And only 37 sacks last season, that's it for the entire team. That's not acceptable. 37, that's it? Like, who had 17 less than that, you would get Aaron Donald alone. And a team total of 37 sacks, that's not how you pressure the football. That's not how you pressure the quarterback to make him make errors and make him make bad throws, make him make bad decisions. So that's my main concern is just their pass rushing, and as well as just like possibly updating their offensive line as well, because they also need help on that matter. And, we'll see how they play through it in the draft, but I think that for the most crucial thing is pass rushing, and this is a pass rushing draft class for sure. So there shouldn't be a low number of rushers they can take when it comes down to the draft. As for the Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens, I say this: give Lamar Jackson wide receivers he can trust and rely on to make big plays so he can work on his passing game and get better overall over time, so he's not just running the ball 25 to 30 times a game like he's been doing. Because that is a serious concern because of the fact that, like, your quarterback should not be running the ball more times than some running backs do all game. And with that, Lamar Jackson's just like due for an injury, isn't it? That's just how it works. That's just how it's going. It's just going to lead to a serious injury, I feel like. That's just I just don't see how Lamar Jackson can continually be a a starting quarterback, healthy starting quarterback in the NFL, if he's doing the read option and just running the ball at will, nilly-dilly, for 35 to 40 plays, because that might be how it's going. So that's just how I see that, at least. And overall, I would definitely see this as helping his offensive line and getting him wide receivers and tight end, and maybe not tight end because they have a good tight end, but a wide receiver besides Michael Crabtree or others of that nature, in where he can really just let that football go deep, and a fast, accurate wide receiver can be at that ball. But, that's just how I see it. Moving on, Chicago Bears. Find a kicker. Bottom line. You can add more depth to your pass rushers to make you even more of a deadly defense, but you need a kicker to finish these games when they're close, because sometimes your offense is not going to be able to do it. Moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals. With their new coach, Zach Taylor, and the exit of Marvin Lewis, they have lost also just a good chunk of their defense, and then there's also Devontae Perfect, who looks like to be cut this season. This is a cut candidate, if you will. And Preston Barrow being a free agent. It looks like they need some new help on the linebacking core, which is like the heart and soul of most of defenses, obviously. So they need to upgrade that linebacker unit, as well as, just, maybe, and also it's an offensive line issue as well. A lot of teams have an offensive line issue, and Cincinnati is one of them. And going to the Cleveland Browns. With this, how this is all turning out, I've said this before, the Cleveland Browns, I feel like, are my choice for the AFC North title. And I think to do that, they really need to boost up. They need to give a boost pack, if you will, to their run defense, because their run defense was not the best. And they had a great passing defense, no question about it, but they need more of a run defense to help with that, because they were ranked 28th last year against the run. And I guess that goes to the interior defensive tackles and as well as linebacker talent. But like when you look at their secondary is top notch. Like Denzel Ward had a fantastic season, very underrated season if you ask me on the defensive side. Like I understand the Colts linebacker did get defensive rookie of the year, and he was leading the whole league in tackles. I get that. Denzel Ward was also a candidate for defensive rookie of the year for how well he played. So, granted, that's how that all went down. But I think that's just that pass rush that run defense needs to complement their passing defense for sure. And Dallas Cowboys, since losing their first-round pick this year, I know they made the playoffs, but still losing a first-round pick, regardless of where it is in position-wise, is rough. For sure, they still need to do some things. It's really hard to explain, but overall, you're looking at them as just a team that's just maybe looking for a strong caliber offensive line, or there's rumors like Earl Thomas is going to go there, and they need an upgrade in safety, of course, so that might be a factor. But maybe they need to push for Earl Thomas more than most people think. That's just how I see it, at least. Going to the Buffalo Bills now. I kind of went a little off track here, but yes. But continuing this, again, this team needs an offensive line. And you need to build around Josh Allen. Like how the Cardinals are going to need to build around Josh Rosen. This team, the Bills need to build around Josh Allen, and they need to start this season. They can't force to miss a season or two of free agencies just because of budgetary concerns or whatnot. Just sometimes you got to cut some high key players, maybe even cut a LaShawn McCoy because he's kind of at the end of his career, and that would save them $6.5 million. Which could be very useful in getting Josh Allen better weapons overall. So that's just how I see it for the Buffalo Bills. It's just time to build around Josh Allen. If he's your guy, you gotta make that choice now. And Carolina Panthers. The one crucial thing is if Cam Newton does not play this season, you need to find out who your quarterback's going to be. Are you going to take a decent game manager in a backup quarterback? There's a lot available to take when it comes down to that in the free agent market. So we will definitely see how that all goes down. But definitely Carolina Panthers' major concern is the quarterback position if Cam Newton's shoulder, if he's going to sit out due to that shoulder injury he has sustained. Because we have no idea what the extent of that injury really is, or to my knowledge, I don't. But overall, it's one of those things where this team needs to look for it. And then we're going to have to go fast here, running out of time. Denver Broncos fix that defensive line, and Joe Flacco I don't know why. Just give me I think their to-do list to me is give me an explanation for Joe Flacco. I just don't see it. And for the Lions, you got to replace Ansah and Ezekiel, your top defensive guy that's going into the free agent market. And maybe upgrade some secondary corners as well. For Green Bay, they need some defensive help, definitely. They need a safety. They also I don't think Jimmy Graham is going to be that tight end for them for the future to help out this team offensively. Maybe they need to find a better tight end. Maybe just to have a blocking tight end in general, just to give Aaron Rodgers some more time. As for the Texans, they got to bring back the Honey Badger. He helped that team a lot on the defensive side, and it's just they need, if they can't get Clowney back, they need help on the pass rushing as well. So they need help on that defensive side. Their offense seems to be good for the time being. Maybe get a running back or something like that. But regardless, that defense is your biggest concern when losing the Honey Badger, and also about your pass rushing game of Clowney being also gone. Possibly. With the Colts, just spend money. Spend it on pass rushers. Spend it on maybe another target for Andrew Luck to rely on. Add talent to that secondary. Just you have the most money to spend. Just spend it on maybe not just crucial holes, just to get some bodies in there, especially in the pass rushing department and in the just defensive secondary department as well is also pretty important. But maybe even a wide receiver to really help out Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton in that matter. Because I still have Eric Ebron, who's been playing great, and T.Y. Hilton's also a very go-to for Andrew Luck. But Andrew Luck likes to spread the ball around. He doesn't like just to go to one guy. So helping T.Y. Hilton out and getting someone else, maybe that slot, maybe someone better in that slot position, could really benefit them in the long run. Jacksonville Jaguars. Just first thing comes to mind is Blake Bortles your guy? If he is, you got to put weapons around him, but you're low on cash. So you can't really upgrade much. But I think it's time to let Blake Bortles go. I think everyone would agree with me on that. Kansas City. Either bring back D Ford or replace him. Mr. Offsides. I hate to bring it up, but I'm sorry, you have to. And that's just how it works. D Ford is a very crucial player in your defense, so you got to find out how to either replace him or bring him back. And how Eric Berry and Justin Houston have been playing, maybe you might have to restructure how they play on defense, just to move them around in certain circumstances. As for the Chargers, during the playoffs, I saw Phillip Rivers get pressured a lot. They need to upgrade that the offensive tackle position, especially. Just the interior offensive line needs help. That's all I'm going to say about that. For the Rams, the Super Bowl runners-up, if you will, get help from Aaron Donald. I know you had Ndamukong Suh, but I think you need you obviously need to get an edge rusher, and you obviously need to get a safety. Not the play safety, a player safety. That's just how I see it. You got to give help on that defensive side. Donald can't always just do it interior sacks on his own. You got to give him an edge rusher to help out, or you got to give him a secondary to rely on, not just the corners. The safety is the most crucial situation to really, because those rushes could let the guy throw the football, and those safeties better take advantage of some wild throws due to the rushing abilities of a good edge rusher as well as Donald heading into the fray. As for the Dolphins, you already are planning on going a couple years of not winning, but this season you got to move on from Ryan Tannehill. That's just how I see it. As for Minnesota, a very disappointing season, no doubt about it. Your offensive line was god-awful. Change it. That's just the bottom line there. A lot of bad offensive lines that need to be changed this season. For the New England Patriots, you need to find a replacement for Gronk because he might be done already. And maybe look for a successor in Tom Brady because he ain't getting any younger. And Brian Hoyer's your backup. Maybe look for one of the late rounds like you did with Tom Brady. Because you remember you had Drew Bledsoe as your guy. You thought he was going to be the guy for you, for the Patriots. And you went and drafted just a backup quarterback with the 190th overall pick that thought he can help if he ever, just to develop over time to be a starter or even to just be just to help out if he's ever injured, which was the case and turned out to be the best situation ever happened to the Patriots as well as Tom Brady. So that's just how I see that. And for the Saints, they have everything to go on right now. Maybe a better upgrade in tight end than Josh Hill. You need a replacement for him. And with Benjamin Watson's retirement, you just got to get deep in that tight end because Breeze does love his tight ends, for sure. And, of course, you rolled the dice on Dez Bryant, and he tore his Achilles, so I don't know what you're going to do there. And as for the New York Giants, do I really need to explain anything? Offensive tackle and Eli Manning's replacement. Those are the two crucial ones. And as for the Jets, you need a better running back, you need a better tight end for Darnold, and you need a better wideout for Darnold. You need everything offensively except for Darnold. As for the Oakland Raiders, everything. Sometimes you just got to follow that best player available approach, and where it doesn't matter what position they are, you just got to find the best possible player that's available and take advantage of that opportunity. As for the Philadelphia Eagles, not sure what to do with being deep in the red when it comes to your contracts, but with you trading, most likely franchise tagging Nick Foles and trading him, make sure you get a good deal out of it at the end of it. As for Pittsburgh, you have James Conner on the as your running back, so you're fine without Le'Veon. Without Antonio Brown, you have Smith-Schuster. Maybe find a complement to him. Get some. You got to maybe get some help with that corner, the cornerbacks, and just again, you got to have to deal with a lot, especially with the Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell situations. As for the 49ers, they need an edge rusher. They need some more pressure. I mean, DeForest Buckner, again, is like an Aaron Donald almost, but he only had 12 sacks. And, of course, I have tons of money in the salary cap. They need secondary help. They need edge rusher help, and they definitely need the offensive help. So they need to go wild this offseason, offensively and defensively. As for the Seahawks, they need to draft a lineman in the first round because they need some help there because Russell Wilson keeps running for his life. That's just what I saw, at least. Buccaneers, too much to go on. I can't express enough, but definitely just maybe retain Donovan Smith, who's been a very solid player for you guys, as well as maybe spend some money on a safety, or even draft a safety, get some help there. As for the Titans, you need to find a consistent wideout. I mean, I know you've had some guys in your wideouts. What's the wideout category, if you will, or the wide, like Corey Davis? He's so inconsistent, it hurts. So that's also the main issue there. You got to find a consistently good wide receiver. As for the Redskins, just get a quarterback, man. Do whatever you can. Get Nick Foles. If you do everything you can to try to get Nick Foles or whatever have you, you got to find a quarterback because you had a great season with Alex Smith, then he injured himself, and then you guys were done. So my recommendation is find that quarterback and find him quickly. And that is all the teams, and that is all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining me today on this Friday, and I hope you all enjoy the weekend. We'll come back on Monday. We'll have hopefully more stuff to talk about, especially in the AAF. We'll have to talk about their games and such. That season is still getting very interesting. But as always, I'm Jeff Malinoff, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.